Hi everyone, my name's Vicky and I'm from ViCare Support Services. I'm a social worker by trade and I have been working in the NDIS scope for the last 4 years and with traumatic brain and spinal injuries for the last 8 years. I have worked with over 350 participants who have all had either severe brain or spinal injuries and major cognitive deficits. More recently, I've been working with ConneCTErs Australia and assisting them with growing their community and providing insight to their participants on how they can access the NDIS, assisting them with being able to access the community, access more services and getting the treatment and therapies that they need. So we have decided that it would be great to share this to everyone on the website so that everyone could get a bit of insight on this. We did go through all of this information at the recent event that was held in the city in Sydney. So we thought it would be really good for all of you to get this really practical information. So the main things I'm going to be going through today is what is the NDIS, how do you access the NDIS when you've got CTE, how do you apply, how do you let them know when things change, how can you access a support animal, and other really important information. The first thing we're going to go through today is why accessing support early is really important. There's varying factors such as having a really connected treatment team, being linked in with support services and social and community participation, and we're going to go through each one of these individually. So the reality of having CTE is managing your symptoms in the community. Now, in order to do this, you need to have the right support system in place. So the most important thing is having a treatment team that is all working together. So this includes your GP, your neurologist, your psychologist, psychiatrist, occupational therapist, physiotherapist, and other allied health professionals that are going to come together to help you manage your symptoms more efficiently, reduce the risk of crisis or hospitalization, and get ahead of any changes before they become too overwhelming. In addition to this, we're also going to be assisting you to link in with support services early enough so that you can put into place strategies and have therapies in place that are going to assist you with things like memory, behavior management, your mental health, your daily functioning, routines, and just building up your overall confidence so that when you're alone at home, you're able to do this and knowing that you have different measures in place and different strategies that you can use so that you don't feel as confused or overwhelmed when things might get a little bit more overwhelming when you are in the community. Lastly is talking about social and community participation, and this is really important to have in place because what it does is it helps you reduce isolation and depression. It can keep the brain active and engaged, and it builds meaningful connections and routines. Now, the importance of having all of these in place is the fact that when these are set up and you have all of your treatment team working together, you've got the strategies you need to live independently at home and access the community, and then also support to access the community. It means that not only you yourself are going to feel better in everyday life, but also the burden falls off of your family. And we know that with a lot of your participants, we find that the more that the family is supported, the longer that person can live independently at the home because all the right steps have been taken to make sure that that person is able to manage independently, but also that stress comes off of the family members who often find themselves taking on those roles. When these supports are in place, people are more likely to remain independent and live in the community for longer. Alright, so a lot of you might not even know what the NDIS is. So to give you a basic understanding, the NDIS is the National Disability Insurance Scheme, and it's been put in place to support Australians under the age of 65 who have permanent and significant disabilities. It's individualised, meaning you gain access to tailored support plans that meet your goals and your situation. The goal inevitably is to increase your independence, improve your quality of life, and support ongoing participation in the community, whilst also accessing your treatment and therapies with your providers and allied health specialists. So a lot of people ask us, how do I access the NDIS when I have CTE? The short answer is yes, you are eligible to access the scheme, but the diagnosis you're going to list isn't going to be CTE per se, rather it's going to be the deficits you're experiencing. So this might be permanent cognitive impairments, physical impairments, emotional or behavioral impairments, all the way stopping you from accessing the community independently. Some of the common symptoms that will allow you to qualify include memory loss, poor attention, slow processing, behavioral changes, emotional dysregulation, mobility issues, or challenges with daily life. All of these are okay to use and will all qualify you to access the NDIS. It doesn't guarantee that you'll gain access to the scheme, but it does make it a lot easier than writing CTE. As many of you would know, CTE is something that's diagnosed after death, and you have been given this diagnosis from your neurologist or another significant provider in your life based off of the symptoms. The next question you might be asking is, okay, I figured out how to do my application. And the next thing you're wondering is, well, what supports can you get through the NDIS? So more specifically, the NDIS runs under 3 different support networks. You've got your core supports, your capacity building, and your capital supports. There's also transport, which is separate but also sometimes fall under core supports, so we'll just include it in that. So basically, when you're talking about core supports, that's assistance with your daily living and community participation. So this might be assistance with social outings or community engagement, as well as support in the home such as showering, cooking, and other routine things that you need to do, such as cleaning and gardening. Secondary to this, we've got the capacity building supports. Now this covers an array of allied health therapies. We already mentioned some, including occupational therapy, speech pathology, psychology, and physiotherapy, but there are a lot more that can be accessed. And if you have any questions about this and are watching our video today, feel free to reach out to us and we can answer these questions in more detail for you. In addition to this, within your capacity building supports, you're also generally given a support coordinator. Not always, but generally in your first plan, you will be provided with this support, and basically that person's role is going to be to link you in with all the services that you've been approved for, and to continuously liaise with those providers to make sure that A, you're getting the support you need, but also so that they can update your LAC and the NDIS at the end of your first plan period, so we can update the plan so that it has more or less funding depending on how it's all being used. It also allows for assessments to be done, so you might be accessing the scheme without having worked with an OT or a speech pathologist already, so there might be funding in there just to fund these assessments to be done in the first year, and then those providers will then make a recommendation for what supports they feel are necessary for the next 12 months after this, and then those things will be applied in your next plan. It's not always guaranteed, but that's the best way to go about it. In addition, there's also those capital supports that we discussed before, and those include, but are not limited to, assistive technology and home modifications. These include modifications in your home, in your bathroom, in your backyard, but also technology that can be useful to you within your home and in the community. So if you know that you're prone to falls, you might be recommended through a functional assessment to have something like a falls monitor, and these allow you to call your family using the device. It's generally wrapped around your neck and you can press a button and it'll call straight to the family. It also will detect if you've had a fall. Similarly, I've had some other clients with CTE who are now accessing noise cancelling headphones, so it's easier for them when they're in the community so they don't become overwhelmed. We've also got stuff like mats that you put at the front of the house that'll remind you to get your wallet, your keys, and your phone, and other things like that. So that's all the different ways that you can use your plan. Obviously there's a lot more to it, but that's the basic understanding of it all. Coming off of these supports, something that I spoke about with Rowena that we thought was really important to let you guys know about is therapy dogs and emotional support animals. So therapy dogs can play a life-changing role in people with CTE and acquired brain injuries. These therapy dogs help with emotional regulation and reducing your anxiety. They promote routine and structure, reduce social isolation, and provide comfort and motivation during your recovery. The NDIS may fund costs related to therapy or assistant dogs if you can clearly link your need for the disability animal to your needs. It also is imperative that you have evidence from your treating providers, including your psychologist and occupational therapist, that it is a reasonable and necessary support. It is important to have supporting documentation in your NDIS reports or functional assessments explaining why the dog is essential for your daily function, as well as how it helps reduce your reliance on paid supports. The dog also needs to be appropriately trained by a registered provider. Generally, you can source those independently and then have the dog certified as a support animal through the vet, but you can gain funding to support you to do this. So some of the funding that is included in the NDIS is the initial training and certifications, the ongoing support and maintenance of the training, as well as equipment you need to work with your animal safely in the community. All right, so now that we've gone through what the importance is of the NDIS and what functions you can access through it, I'm just going to talk you a little bit through about how to access the NDIS by completing an application. So the first and most important part of completing your application is gathering all of your medical reports and letters from your specialists, doctors, and other treatment therapists who have been assisting you in your progress with your CTE since your diagnosis. An essential person here is going to be your neurologist, but also your GP and other allied health professionals if you're paying for this independently, which a lot of you may already be doing. So you might be accessing your physio and psychologist independently, and you can get them to help you to write reports that you will submit alongside the access request form. The access request form is the main NDIS application that needs to be completed alongside your medical documentation in order for you to access the scheme. Once the access request form is done, you submit this to the NDIS and they will then review all of the information you have provided and then determine whether or not your disability is impairing you to the point where you need assistance through paid services, and if they are going to be reasonable and necessary to assist you further to manage your CTE diagnosis in the community. Once you have submitted all of this, you will wait for the eligibility decision, which is generally within 21 days of the submission. There have been some recent changes, so we are finding now that once you have submitted this access request form, you will then be contacted by your local area coordinator at a local NDIS office, and they will be assisting you to complete a community connections meeting. The LAC will then write a report outlining all of the services that you're accessing already, as well as additional support you may require, and then they'll do a big report and submit everything all together and then send it off to the NDIS. This can take months of waiting, but it's definitely worth getting it in as soon as possible so that that waiting period doesn't go into crisis and then you need services and you don't have the funding for it. Basically from there, what happens is you'll either be approved or denied. If you are approved, you will then be asked to attend a planning meeting with the NDIS planners, and you will go through your goals and the services you require to assist you in your daily life and the therapies you may require, and then they'll put in place a plan. If in the circumstance that you are declined, you do have the capacity to submit an appeal and have the decision reviewed. So the next thing we're going to discuss is changes in circumstances and how you can address this in the middle of a planned period. So let's assume that you've now gained access to the NDIS, or you're watching this video and you're already a participant of the NDIS and you want to know what happens if in the middle of my plan something happens to me and I decline in my health, whether it be physical or cognitive, and I need supports that aren't currently funded in my plan. Well, in this circumstance, we need to look at completing a change of circumstances with the NDIS and having OT functional assessments and psychologist functional assessments completed to determine what the changes are and how you can be better supported by the NDIS to address these. So what's going to happen is you're going to submit this change of circumstances application to the NDIS with these reports. These reports completed by your allied health therapist and specialist are going to say, hey, this is where this person was 6 months ago, this is where they're at now, these are the changes that have occurred, and these are the increased supports that they need to access. You then give that to the NDIS and they will come back to you and let you know whether or not they feel that the changes are significant enough to call for a review, and you will then participate in a review hearing, which will inevitably increase your funding if that's what you require. The most important part when completing a change of circumstances form is having those functional assessments completed. These functional assessments are what provide the evidence to the NDIS to outline that the current supports just aren't cutting it anymore, and that you really need additional fundings to pay for either additional care services, additional therapy services, or additional access to the community, whatever the situation may be. What I want to go through now is just some common questions and tips. The most important thing that we get asked a lot is, where can I get help to access the scheme? With ConneCTErs Australia and myself here at ViCare Support Services, as well as some of my colleagues, we will be working with you to assist you to access the scheme. This will either be in the capacity as a social worker or as an advocate. Secondary to us here at ConneCTErs Australia, we will also guide you to liaise with your GP and other specialist treatment therapists that might be able to support you to be completing these applications, or to be assisting you whilst you're accessing the NDIS. A lot of you might already be accessing services that are funding some supports for you. So what happens here is, what we notice is a lot of the time you might be getting some access to some services, but not an entire holistic amount of therapies being provided to you. So you might be getting psychology through, say, a GP's mental health care plan, or you may be accessing other programs through an EPC program, as well as through some other insurance agencies and stuff like that. So what happens here is we look at what is being funded through these other schemes and where are they lacking. Then when we're setting your goals with the NDIS, we are asking them to contribute in addition to the existing schemes, but not on top of. So the main role of anyone who's supporting you would be to understand that what we're trying to prevent is of overlapping of services. That's when the biggest issues occur. It's really important for you to have an advocate that understands both the schemes you're accessing in order for them to help you through your planning meeting. You need to outline to the NDIS what support you're already receiving and being funded for, and what things maybe you're funding for independently that you need support from the NDIS to continue to manage. So this might be therapies, or you may be paying for carers at the home, cleaners, gardeners, whatever it may be. These additional services that are not being funded through these other schemes, you need to outline to them, this is why I'm accessing the NDIS, and these are the services I'm aiming to access through my additional funding, on top of the funding I'm already receiving. And then there's specialist teams back at the NDIS who generally will go back to whatever service it is that you're working with already. We'll ask them what you're currently funded for and make sure that that overlapping doesn't occur. But this can sometimes get complicated, and as a result, if you've got someone working with you and advocating for you during these meetings that might already have a bit of understanding about this stuff, then it makes it a lot easier for the NDIS planners to just get that plan over the line, because they've already got that information. Another really important question that we get is, should I keep a symptoms diary? And the answer to that is absolutely. You need to write down how things are affecting you in your day-to-day life, but also how they're getting worse. If you have this type of symptom diary on hand when you're having either your initial assessment so that you can gain access to the NDIS, or if you are doing a review, it makes it really easy for you to sit down and say to the planner or the reviews officer, hey, this is where I was at, and this is what is happening now. These are the changes that have occurred, and this is why I need more support. Last but not least, I just want to go through a few final messages, and that is, CTE is hard, but you don't have to do this alone. There are supports available to you, and if you reach out to us, we will try and assist you in the best way possible. We understand that managing CTE alone in the community can be very difficult, and that is why we highly recommend that you start reaching out and applying for services like the NDIS, where you can get more assistance. You will find that you will have more control over your life, more choices, and overall a better quality of life. Supports like therapy dogs, allied health treatment teams, and daily assistance services through care agency can make all the difference. So in addition to the fact that you get this better quality of life, it also assists you to access services which will give everyone around you a better quality of life. Carer burnout is really prominent with everyone in the community when you only have one informal support helping you out, especially when you're talking about the degenerative nature of CTE. The reality is that your needs are going to get higher, or that your therapies are going to increase, and this person might be the main breadwinner, they might be the only person who is supporting you and other people in their life, and what we want to prevent is carer burnout. The most important thing is that your relationship with your informal supports stay intact, and if these slowly wither away because of their role in assisting you, then this can cause an issue for you as the participant, but also for your family on a whole or your friendship circle. If you're overwhelmed, that's okay. Support is available every step of the way. If you do have any other questions from us today, please feel free to reach out to us. All of our information is here on the website. You can also feel free to reach out to the other important members in the group who will get back to you with some answers or refer you in the right direction.